introduction. Thank you so much for joining us today for our quarterly Xero webinar. I know how busy everybody is, so we really do appreciate the time that you take to join us here. My name is Lee Simonet. I'm an Associate Director in the Healthcare team here at Forvis Mazars, and I'm joined today by Kelsey Ross, who will shortly introduce herself and begin our Xero webinar. Just to give you a little bit of a background, the healthcare team here at Forvis Mazars, we look after over 350 GP practices across England and Scotland, as well as various federations, primary care networks, and over 2,500 medical practitioners. Today's webinar, though, is based around Xero and digital cloud-based software. We hope to show you some handy hints and tips that will help you utilise Xero more effectively, or if you aren't using Xero, showcase why it's such an excellent cloud software package to use. Okay, we will have a Q&A at the end, but please feel free to pop some questions in the Q&A as we go. We'll try and answer them as we go, either Kelsey or myself. The webinar is recorded, so if you haven't been able to make the live session or you have to dip out, then there will be a recording available for you probably early next week at some point, so don't worry, you won't miss anything on that. And as I say, we will take a little bit of a Q&A at the end. Okay, so with that, I'm going to hand over to Kelsey, who's going to get us started with today's webinar. Thank you, Kelsey.
Thank you, Lee, and thank you everyone for joining us today. So as Lee says, we are just doing a back to basic Xero webinar today, and we're just going to go through some of the main tips and tricks that we think are useful for the medical practices. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to share my screen and we'll just run through a live demo of Xero. As Lee says, if you have any questions along the way, please just pop them in the Q&A tab and we will answer them as and when we go along. So this is just what we will be covering today. So we've got bank reconciliation, bank feeds, bank rules, the chart of accounts, and then Lee is then going to move on and start discussing invoicing, repeat invoicing, bills from email, and then attaching paperwork to the invoicing and the bills. So I'm now just going to share my screen and then we can start the demo. So hopefully you can all see this okay. So what we have here is the Xero dashboard, and this is essentially just your Xero homepage, and it's the first thing you see when you log into Xero. So what I have on my dashboard is I have a couple of bank accounts set up. So I've got a current account, a savings account, and then a petty cash account, sorry. I've then got an accounts watch list, which I'll come back to in a little bit. And then we've got our invoicing section and our bills to pay section, which, like I say, Lee will cover in a little bit more detail later on. So for me, the main benefit of Xero is the online bank feeds. Now, what this means is you can link your online bank to Xero, and it just means that your transactions from your online bank feed through automatically to Xero. So you're no longer having to manually input the transactions into your accounting software, such as GPIris or Sage, or if you're still doing your books manually. So to link your bank feeds, you would simply just click this button here where it says Get Bank Feeds. What this does is this then takes you to log into your online banking account. You would just agree and log in, and then you would then just follow the step-by-step instructions. This is just asking when you want your transactions to start from. So if obviously going forward, most practices will now switch to a March year end. So you would want your transactions to start from the 1st of April 2024. So you would put that in and then they would all just start feeding through. Once you've then got all these feeding through, they'll then just come into your bank and then they would then be ready to reconcile what we've got here. Now for security purposes, every 90 days, your bank feeds do need to be renewed. And when they're about to expire, you will get a little warning message here, just saying your bank feeds are about to expire, and then this button will say renew bank feeds. Now, if you do miss this, if you're on holiday or if you've just not logged in, then this will then just change back to get bank feeds. You would just click that and then it would just start renewing again. Again, you would just need to log into your bank, update the conditions, and then just say information from your bank to flow into Xero. Now, the bank feeds are compatible with the majority of UK banks, and there is a list on the Xero website of who are compatible, and also if there's any known issues with any banks at any certain time. And like I said, you can find that on the Xero website. There is no limit to how many banks you can have set up. So if you've got a current account, a savings account, a loan account, a credit card, etc., you can have them all set up within Xero, and it's not a problem at all. So we're now just going to start reconciling the items. So to do this, you would just click here where it says reconcile. So I've got 46 items to be reconciled. I would just click into this. And then this pulls up the screen to reconcile the transactions. So what we've got here is we've got the reconcile tab. We've then got a bank statements tab, and then we've got an accounts transactions tab. So they're basically as they are. So reconcile on this page, bank statements here. So if you click on this would essentially take you to what you've got in your bank statements. And if you logged onto your online banking, they should basically mirror each other. We've then got accounts transactions tab, and this is essentially just where your transactions go once they've been reconciled from this tab here. So if we go back to the reconcile tab, and then we just start reconciling the transactions. So the first transaction I've got is a transfer from one account to another account. So what I would want to do is I'd want to get to this transfer tab here. And then I would just say which account it's a transfer from. So in this case, it's from my savings account. So I would simply just tick the savings account box here and then press OK. And then that's that first transaction reconciled. The next transaction I have is a EDF Energy. So to reconcile this, I would simply just say who it is. So within the who, I would just say EDF. Now I've previously entered this before, so I've got it here. My what, so but this is where I would code it. So this is to do with the chart of accounts, which I will go into more depth in a little bit. But essentially what these are is just the codes that you've got within Xero. So with Xero, you can start typing what you're looking for. So I'm wanting to put this to the heat and light code. I would then just select this, and then you can then add a little description. So it's up to yourself if you want to add something here. So for me, EDF is quite self-explanatory, so I don't need to add anything here. If, however, it was something a little bit more out of the ordinary, I can then just put a little description in this little box here. If I then wanted to add an invoice to this transaction, I would then go add details, and then I can either drag and drop from my documents that I've got on my computer, or I can then add where this little paper is here, add from the file library, which I will show you in a little bit, or again, I can then upload from my files, which is just the files I have on my computer. Once I've then got my invoice attached, I would then just save the transaction, and then I would then reconcile. That's that one reconciled. So the next one I've got here is bank interest. Now, this is currently shown as bank interest and where it's previously been coded. The reason it's doing that is because at the bottom of the page, we have this box ticked that says suggest previous entries. So this is basically saying to Xero that anything that I've coded before, I want you to show me how I've coded it. So if I untick this, it gets rid of all these things that I've previously entered. So I would need to just do it every time without knowing what I'd done the last time. So I would say it's quite important just to keep this little box ticked, just to keep yourself right. So I know from the last time that bank interest, I coded to interest income. I'm happy to still continue to do that, so I'm just going to press OK to this one. The next one we've got here is staff salaries. So it's up to yourself if, depending on how they're paid through the bank. So if they're paid as a bulk payment, they will show as the one bulk payment. If obviously it's paid per individual employee, it would show per individual employee. So for the purpose of this demo, we have it as a bulk payment. So if I then want to break this down a little bit further, where it says keep as 3 lines, it would usually say add details. So because I'd previously done this broken down, I'm just going to click where it says keep as 3 lines. And then from here, I can then just break this down a little bit further. So previously I had broken this down into admin staff, nursing salaries, and GP salaries. And then we've then got the codes for each of these. So we've got the staff salaries, the nursing salaries, and the GP retainer salaries. So what I would then need to do is then get the total from my 27,861.90 and then split that between the admin, the nurses, and the GP retainer. And then making sure that my total then came back to the 27,861.90. So to do that, I can say that this was maybe 20,000 for my admin salaries. I then had 5,000 for my nurse's salary, and then my GP retainer was 2,000. I can then see that my total, my 27,861.90, matches my 27,861.90. I would then save the transaction and then reconcile it. Now, if my totals didn't match, this would not let me reconcile it. So obviously, you would just need to make sure that you're getting your splits correctly. But like I say, it's not the end of the world if you don't, because it won't let you reconcile if you've missed a penny or transposed a number or whatever in that certain situation. You would then simply reconcile, and then that's that one gone. The next transaction we have here is the health board statement, which Lee will cover in more depth to do with the invoicing. So I'll just quickly show you a little bit of how to do this. So you can either code this as the one code. So we've got here, and then again, I would then attach your health board statement to this, again, just by going add details and either dragging and dropping from your emails or adding from your files that you've got on your computer. You could then also break it down further, like what we did with the staff salaries, by going add details and breaking down your health board statement here. So just changing the description of each line. So the first one, global sum. Your quantity would always just stay as 1, and this is because your quantity times is the unit price. So if I change my unit price to 2, this times my unit price by 2 and then changes the amount here. So always just want to keep that as 1. Your unit price, again, you would then just work your way down your health board statement. So if this was £90,000, I would then put this to my global sum code. Again, this is all to do with your chart of accounts, making sure you've got the right codes in place. I would simply just keep working my way down my health board statement until my total here matched my total up here, making sure that any clawbacks or deductions were put in as negatives. So for instance, your superannuation deductions and your NHS levies, they should all go in as negatives. So if I've got superannuation deductions here, I can put my quantity as 1. I'm just going to put it as a whole rather than breaking it out per partner. I would just put this as a negative £10,000. And then it's then taken away 10,000 from a 90, giving me £80,000 here. Like I say, just making sure that your total at the end matches your total up here. And obviously, like I said before, it won't let you reconcile the transaction if the totals don't match. So yeah, that's fine. And like I say, from the staff salaries, any lines that you've added this time will save to the next time. And then if you've then got additional income for that month, so if it's maybe if you'd started this in the April, maybe by the June, obviously the quarter health board statements, you get seniority, etc. on them, you can then add a new line for popping in your seniority here. So you can just continue to add lines as much as you need. And then you can also delete ones out as well. So I'm just going to cancel this transaction. The next thing I'm wanting to show you is just the bank rules within Xero. So what this means is you can create a rule within Xero, and it just means that anytime Xero then sees this transaction coming through the accounts, it will then just apply this rule, and then it's just a little bit quicker for you to do the reconciliation. So to create the rule, you just click where it says options and then create bank rule. From here, it then opens up a new screen. So the first thing it's saying is you want to apply the rule to the following conditions. So do you want it to any of the following conditions or all of the following conditions? I would always say all of the following conditions. I want my description to equal MDGS. So where it says equals, I would probably change to contains. And this is because often in the bank statements, there is a random series of numbers that follow the description. Now, if that series of numbers changes, then your bank rule won't apply. So I would just simply delete the random series of numbers and then just leave it as MDGS. I would then set my contact, which here would just be MDGS. Click it here. And then I'd then come down to allocate the item lines. So the description here, again, I would just put as MDGS. My account, so I'd code this to medical subscriptions. Popping it in here. No VAT, and I want 100% of the transaction to be coded to medical subscriptions. I'm happy with that. And then I'm just wanting to make sure I'm adding it in the right account. So within my current account, I could add it to all the accounts, my savings account, my petty cash, but I'm just wanting to keep this within my current account. The name of the rule, I'm happy with it just being MDGS, and I would then just save this rule here. This will then take me back to my reconciliation page, and then it's applied this rule. So now anytime Xero sees MDGS coming through the bank, it's going to apply this rule, and then I would be happy just to press OK and reconcile. So that's that one reconciled there. So these next couple of transactions are for income. So this one for Digby Brown. So if you're using the invoice section, which Lee will show you, this is how you match these off. So if you have a Digby Brown invoice waiting to be reconciled, you can go to the match button here, and then you would then just look for your transaction. So you would just scroll down and then you would then find it. Or if it's maybe relating to more than one invoice, you could then just select which ones it relates to, like this, making sure that the total matches your £89. So I'm going to cancel that one out, because if I just scroll down the page, we've got one here for DWP, which is went green because I have an invoice for DWP waiting to be reconciled. So that is telling me this is what we've found, this has come to the bank, is that your match? Now I would have a look at my invoice and then just say, yep, I'm happy that that's correct, happy that that's matching off, and I could then just press OK, and then that one reconciles. So you would simply just do that until you have reconciled all of the transactions. Once you've got them all reconciled, what would happen is your statement balance and your balance in Xero would then match. And then once they've then matched, what I would then do is I would then go onto my online banking and then just make sure that my statement balance in my bank matched my balance in Xero as well. And then if they don't match, what I would then do is I would then come into my bank statements tab and then just make sure if there's been any issues along the way. And to do this, I would then just simply check my balances along the side here. And then if I was then having a quick scan through, and then so I can see here, there's a couple duplicate transactions. Now, it doesn't mean it's being paid twice, it's just simply flowed through from your bank twice. Now, the reason I'm highlighting this is because October, November last year, there was a slight issue with the RBS bank where the transactions were duplicating. But it was just a slight issue and it was resolved very quickly. Now, if that does happen, you would simply just delete out the duplicate transaction lines. And to do that, you would just click the ones that you want to delete and then delete them. Now, if by you did happen to delete the wrong transaction, you would then just click the little box again and then restore it. So anything that has been deleted can be undeleted, so it's not an issue at all. So that's basically it for the bank side of things. So I'll quickly just show you the chart of accounts. So to find the chart of accounts, you go accounting, and then down the bottom here where it says chart of accounts. and then this then brings up your list of codes that we've got. So we here at Forvis Mazars worked very closely with Xero, and we have made an extensive list of codes to include within Xero. Now, this is because Xero is not built for medical practice, it's built for limited companies. So having your chart of accounts correct and with all the necessary codes is vital, especially if you are breaking out your health board statement, because there is a lot of income codes that you will need, such as global sum, influenza, shingles, etc. You will need all those codes, which we have included. So you would have all these here, and then you would then just want to make sure you've got all the necessary codes that you need. If you wanted to add a new code, you would just simply go add account, and then you would then select either revenue for an income code or an overhead for an expenditure code. You would then just find the next available code that you would want to use. So I think 11 is free in my case. It is. If it is not free, I would get a little red box just saying it's unavailable. So if it was free, I can then just say what I want to name my code, name it, save it, and then that's it ready to use. Or if there was codes that you were looking through and you thought, actually, there's codes and I'm never going to use them, you can then rename them. And to do that, you would just find the necessary code, click on it, and then you can then change the name of it here. So if this was Men C, I can then change this to Men B and then save the code. And then that's that as well. Within the codes, if there is something you just want to keep a little eye on throughout the year, so if you're thinking maybe your repairs and maintenance or your postage and stationery costs are just edging up each year and you just want to keep a little eye on them, what you can do is you can add them to a little watch list. Now, to do that, you can just search for whatever code you're looking for. So in my case, I'm going to say it's repairs. Search for it. So my repairs and renewals, I'm going to click in here. And I want to show it on my dashboard watch list. I'm going to click it and then save it. I'm going to then go back to my dashboard. It then adds to this watch list here. So I've got postage and stationery, my salary, GP, and my repairs and renewal. And then what this does, and this just keeps me right on what I've spent year to date this month. And then if I had a budget in place, it will then tell me if it's in line with budget or not. So again, just another little thing you can do via the chart of accounts. So before I hand over to Lee, I'd quickly mentioned the files library, which I will just show you. To access that, this would have your practice name at the top here. You just click on that drop-down menu, go to files, and then this is your file library. And again, from here, you can either drag and drop in, upload from the files on your computer, or email. Each Xero account has its own individual and unique email address. I would just add this to your favorites because you're never going to remember it. And then you would then just have your files this way, and you can attach your files from your file library using this little section. If you are using it, I'd advise putting things into little folders, because if not, you would then just end up with quite a vast majority of invoices waiting there, which can make it quite hard to find what you're looking for. So I think that is me, and I'm going to pass over to Lee now.
Thanks, Kelsey. That's fantastic, and we've had some questions in as well that we've been answering. So please keep those questions going. If you've got anything, anything at all that you want to ask us. As Kelsey said, I'm just going to go into a little bit more detail on Xero in terms of just to explain a little bit about kind of the two licenses. So with Xero, if you are with an accredited Xero partner, if your accountant is accredited Xero partner, there's a license called a non-VAT cash book license, which you were basically able to get through your accountant, which it doesn't allow you to raise invoices or bills or anything, but it does. It's a cheaper license, and it enables you to link your bank and do exactly what Kelsey's just been through. So everything that Kelsey's kind of been through there is based on a non-VAT cash book, the inability to raise bills and invoices. And the reason that's so kind of prevalent is, I suppose in GP land, you don't raise huge amount of invoices. You're unable to. That's not to say you can't do that on Xero to track your money, and we do encourage you to do that as well. But it is a personal preference for you guys. So if you are with an accountant who is an accredited Xero partner, then please speak to them, because you may be able to just downgrade your license ever so slightly. It's not available on the high street, so you can't go directly to Xero to buy that. But what we want to do now is look at the full version of Xero a little bit. I want to, and in particular, the invoices and the bills. So obviously within Xero, your bank feed set up, your chart of accounts, they're hugely important. As Kelsey said, getting them right from the offset is really key. Because, you know, if you do get the box standard license, you will just have a line that says sales, and that's no good to you guys. You need a really robust set of chart of accounts. So once we've done that, as Kelsey's been through, we've set up your bank feed, etc. We want to look then at tracking our money. We want to look at raising invoices. We want to look at raising bills and raising bills through email from suppliers. So I'm going to start there. I'm going to start with the income, with just a basic sales invoice. And then what I'm going to do is jump into something called a repeating invoice, which may help you with your big PCSE statements or your health board statements. Basically, what we're doing with that is creating a template that you can edit every month to match the invoice. So first and foremost, just going to jump in. A lot of you might know this, some of you may not. Just a basic sales invoice. So on your dashboard, you have the option here, as Kelsey mentioned, you've got the invoices owed to you and the bills to pay option. This is kind of like having a look at what the money that's owed to you at any one point in time, based on the invoices that you've previously raised and not yet matched in your bank. Now, whether that be because you've not had the money yet or you've not had time to. Really simple. Just click into new sales invoice. Okay, that will then basically open this invoice for you just to create. Might be a one-off. You might not even be sending this invoice to anybody. This could be an internal procedure that you're doing just to track your claims, because you can't send your invoices out to, you know, NHS England or wherever. You have your own claim forms that you still have to kind of maintain. But rather than creating tons of spreadsheets, etc., you may want to track on Xero and look at doing it through Xero. And it basically opens up. It's pretty self-explanatory. So you put the 2 in, the issue date, the date that you due the money, and then the invoice number is kind of set up from Xero. If you've not set one up before, that will be 1, and that will go on and on and on and so on. And then you pop your description like you would do if you were coding. The quantity, again, as Kelsey said, would be 1. Pop your price, and then the account that relates to. So if it is an internal kind of NHS kind of invoice that you're setting up, then you would just pop that to the account. If it was for, you know, shingles or whatever, and you've been paid separately, and you've got that money separate as opposed to your PCSE statement. But, you know, you can use this if you're doing some private work, or you're renting rooms out within your surgery. Then by all means, you know, let's use Xero to be able to do that. Again, if I jump into your dashboard, so your dashboard is your home page where you will always land. And I'll show you how to reconcile that invoice shortly. So yeah, when you jump back into your dashboard, again, you'll get to your home page where you'll have your banks and you'll have your watch lists and your invoices owed to you, etc. Seems to be on a go slow this morning, guys, so I do apologize. But within here, within this page here, you can navigate to quite a lot of areas. So in your business drop down, that's where you will be able to see an overview of all your invoices. But underneath your practice name, you also have a settings option. So if I was going to that settings option, and in here, you've got something called invoice settings. So if we open that, this is where you can then set up your invoice template with your logo, your terms and conditions, your bank details, etc. Now, Xero gives you a standard template, which I think is absolutely fine to use, just needs editing. So basically what you would do here, you can upload your practice logo. If you then go into options and edit, You can then edit some of the wording. You might want to get rid of tax invoice, that kind of thing. You got your terms and your payments. So, if you want to be paid by bank transfer, a lot of practices now are going cashless and don't have money on premises, and they want card payments. If you've got a card reader at reception and things like that, you can even set up kind of payment services in terms of like PayPal and all that kind of stuff. Just be aware that that does come at a cost per kind of transaction. It might not be worth it for the amount of invoices that you actually send out. And then, so once you've done that, you can then have a view of that. So you can preview that invoice to see what it looks like. So that's what they would receive from you. And again, if it was on a phone, you can have a look there and whatnot to see what it would look like as a preview. And the reason I'm showing you that is that you may actually want to use Xero to invoice out certain people. Like I say, if you're renting room out, what you would do, you would click into the invoices, you would raise that invoice. So I'll jump back in again and we'll just go through that again. So we click into new sales invoice. Fill in the body of the invoice based on the information that you need to give it. Sorry guys, it's taking a little bit of time to load. Okay, so the body of the invoice here, who you're invoicing, the description behind that, it might be, like I say, room rent or private fees or something like that, the quantity, the price, the account, and then that will populate that. At this point, what you could then do is click approve an email. So what that then does, it approves your invoice. So that will then sit on your dashboard, enabling you to reconcile that at a later date. But it also emails that invoice out to whoever it needs to go to. They will then get an email from Xero with your name in the body saying, here is your invoice, can you please pay it? And then again, once you're setting up your invoice settings, you'll have kind of terms and conditions on your payment date. So if you've set up an invoice reminder, for example, for 30 days, if you've not cleared that out of your dashboard and matched it to your figure, 30 days from now, that email will go again and they'll get another reminder. So it's a good tool to use, but it does need management. You have to be on it on a daily basis. Okay. I'm just going to jump back into the dashboard. I know it's any usual kind of business, that's how they would work, isn't it? But GP land, that's not quite how you get to do things, unfortunately. And a lot of the information, I suppose, a lot of the income that you guys receive, you don't actually know what it is until you get it. So especially with like a PCSE statement or a health board, it's almost impossible to preempt that invoice. Well, it is impossible to preempt that invoice because you don't know what you're going to get on that. You'll know what work you've done, etc. But until that invoice comes in the door, that's when you know what money you've had in and pension deductions and things like that. So with that in mind, what I wanted to do was show you how to create a template. So Kelsey in the reconcile went through the add details and breaking that down and ticking the suggest previous entries. And what Xero then does, if you are using that kind of format, Xero will try and remember the breakdown previously that you did without the figures, and you can edit that. And again, if you edit it the following month, I think it might change the breakdown, etc. So that is one way to do it. The other way to do it, I suppose, if you are using invoices, create something called a repeating invoice. So to do that, we jump into business. We navigate our way to invoices, which is our invoices landing page, our homepage. This is where you can see all the invoices that you've raised, all the invoices that you've paid, and everything that's waiting payment. Okay, and also things called draft invoices and repeating invoices, which is where we're going to go now. So you can see along the top here, you've got new invoice. To create a repeating invoice, excuse me, click on that little drop down, and you've got repeating invoice. So if you open that invoice up, what it does, it opens up a template for you. And all you would then do, if you're starting, let's say you're starting from the April 24, and that's your first month of Xero, and you receive your PCSE statement, health board statement, usually middle of the month, isn't it? Get that statement and use that as your template. So go into PCSE or the health board, open it up, and get a breakdown. And what we want to do is create that statement on this page. So we say, right, we want to repeat this every single month. The date we would change to the first date that you're doing. So we would change that to the 15th. That's just saying this date has occurred because it's previous. Because there's no real due date, because basically you're raising this invoice, you know, as you've had it. You could actually, I tend to say just 3 days after the invoice date, just to give you an idea. Sorry, not the month after the invoice date, just so you know that that April one relates to April, and I'll go through why that's important in a second. The end date's irrelevant. You don't need to put on that because this is just an ongoing income. At this point, it's important that you click Save as Draft, because if you approve this, you will be approving an incorrect invoice every month. And as I say, you have no idea what that invoice is going to contain until you actually see it, until you see the statement. So it's important to save as draft. What I would then do here, you could just put NHS, England or Scotland or wherever. The reference, PCSE or Health Board or something like that. We're not worried about the branding of the invoice because we're not actually sending it anywhere. Okay. Then what you can then do for your template is basically go down, and you'll only have to do this once because it will save it. So you go down your statement, pop the quantity in one, and then the unit price, you can just put 0 and then code it. And again, you go down the statement, aspiration, unit price 1, 0. And again, the chart of accounts, this is where all these codes come from. So it's important, as I say, to get that right. You might have some rent. So all the usual figures that you get every month, you can populate. Okay. And again, you might have doctor's superannuation pension deductions. So you put in there 1, and again, nothing. And then hopefully you've got superannuation deductions within your chart of accounts as well. So hopefully that kind of makes sense. So you go down the body of that. Most of the stuff that you receive every month is the same. Just the figures change, don't they? Every now and again, you might have additions, and that's fine. That's why we've clicked Save as Draft. Once you save that invoice, then if I navigate back to invoices, it may be on your unit price that you might want to put some figures. If you know that the figures are going to be the same every month, you might want to actually put those figures in. So if I now go into invoices and come into the repeating box, I can see I've got a repeating invoice that's repeating every month here. Now I've put figures in mine because I wanted to put the global sum figure in because I knew that was going to be the same every month for the first, for each quarter. So you can see I've put some figures in here. Doctors' pensions, I know that their pension deductions are going to be the same every month. So I've populated the figure. You might not want to do that, but that is where you find your repeating invoice. So you go into business, into invoices, and choose the repeated invoice, and that's where that will sit. That is editable, so you can change that every quarter if you want. You can change it whenever you need to. But what we're doing now, we're saying, right, every month, repeat this invoice as a draft invoice. So if I go into my dashboard, what you will find after the middle of the month or the date that you've set up, when you're looking at your invoices box, that will increase. You'll see one populating here saying draft invoices. So when that's happened, when you've done that and you're happy with that's populated, you then need to edit that invoice to match the PCSE statement, and then you need to reconcile it. So we'll just run through that. So to edit it, it's really simple. Click into the draft invoice that's been pre-populated. Open it up so you can see it's in the draft tab there. Open it up. And as I say, you only have to create this once. So it might seem a little bit like a bit of work now, but once you've done it the once, it just keeps repeating every month, and it's just a matter of editing it like we're doing now. So we can see I've got this at open. That's fine. In this particular month, for example, actually, we've had we've had some health checks, so I need to pop that on. So all you would do is just pop that on, pop the figure in that it related that it was, and then choose the account that it relates to. Or actually, do you know what? We've not had we've not had any aspiration. Delete. And so that's how you just edit that kind of page there. Okay. Once you've done that, once you've edited it, and you're happy that this total here matches your total that you've received on your statement for that month. They have to coincide and they have to match. Okay. Once you've done that, click on the little drop down at the top right, and don't approve an email because you're not emailing it to anybody. Just click approve. Once you've approved that, you can then add that actual PCSE statement. So if I click approve, oh, it's not been saved. Sorry. Yeah, so once we've approved that, that will then sit in your dashboard. You can attach, drag and drop the paperwork onto the approved invoice. So you've got the statement sat next to the actual PCSE breakdown. So you don't have to keep logging into PCSE and changing your password every 30 seconds or whatever it is. That paperwork is then sat on there. The accountant can then see that as well. And then you can see what you'll have here is an additional awaiting payment item, which will be your PCSE amount. Once you've done that, click into reconcile. Now, I know in England, what happens then is you receive two amounts. Sometimes you'll get some from NHS England and some from your local kind of commissioning board. I'm not sure in Scotland if that's the same kind of format, but it still needs matching out. So we still need to go and match the amount or the two amounts to the invoice that we've raised. Now, if it's just one amount, Xero will find that in green and match it for you. Really simple. If it's not, we just have to do what Kelsey said earlier, which was a little bit of a find and match. I think the heat must have got to my laptop. Here we go. Okay, so if we scroll down here now, we can then see we've received two amounts from NHS England. We've received 75,843 and 432. Now, I know that these two amounts total the statement that I've just raised, the PCSE statement. And all we then have to do, you can go to match or find and match. Scroll down to the invoice there, so we can see the invoice there, 76,275.89. We know that's the total of those two amounts. Tick your box. Because they don't match, Xero is saying, right, you've got an invoice for 76,000, but you've had a part payment of that invoice of 75. Do you want to split it down? You just simply say yes. Click on split. So Xero's saying, there's your total invoice. That's what you've received, and that's what you still owed. It's 432. That's fine because we've received that other amount as well, haven't we? So we can click split. That will now allow us to reconcile that. So it's in green. We can click OK. And we can click confirm. And then what's left is your 432. So if we then go into the find and match, you should see what's left of the invoice that we've just part matched, which is there, 432. We tick that box and we OK that. So the biggest form of work for you is to create that repeated invoice. Once that's created, then you just edit it every month. And unfortunately, there is no quicker way to get around doing that because you just simply don't know what's going to be on it until you receive it. And you know, we're always trying to find ways to make life a little bit quicker for you. So if you are using just the coding, please use the add details like Kelsey said, and tick the remember previous entries, because that will definitely help you in that situation. Or set yourself up a repeated invoice that repeats every month. You just edit it down to match exactly what he's done, what you've received, and then reconcile it in the bank. Now, I know that's fairly quick. Again, we are going to take some questions, but please feel free to drop us an email after this if you do need any further help or anything like that. Okay. So in terms of the invoicing, that's kind of what I wanted to show you, just raising a single invoice, which was fairly straightforward, or raising a repeating invoice. And then, as I say, you can edit those repeated invoices as you go along, should you need to. But some of you may want to use the billing functionality on Xero, which is absolutely fine as well. You can certainly do that. The principle is pretty much similar to what we've just been through. And again, on your dashboard, you will have a bills to pay box. or under business, you will have a bills to pay landing page, which is where, again, you will see an overview of everything that you've got in there. So again, to raise just a single bill, really simple, click your new bill. And you pop in who it's from, the date, the date you're due to pay it, a reference if you need to. And again, this doesn't change down here. Your description, you know, your quantity, your unit price, and then the account that it belongs to, consumable stationery, that kind of thing. You have to approve it. If you don't approve it, it will not sit on your dashboard for you to match it. Okay. However, there is a quicker way to do this. So a lot of you guys, I'm assuming now, are getting your bills, etc., via email. So I'm just going to jump into the bills to pay page from business. So yeah, so people like, I don't know, Viking or you know, Williams, Dean Healthcare, all that kind of stuff, they'll be emailing you now, I assume, with your invoice attached in the body of an attached to the email. You know, whether that be a PDF or whatnot. I'm assuming a lot of you now are getting that. You don't get many paper invoices, which is good. If you do, then you simply just have to scan that paper invoice and then drag and drop it and attach it to when you raise the bill. But what Xero gives you now is an ability to direct bill payments. Now, you will see here the automate bill entry, which we're going to use in a second. You cannot register to receive invoices, I'm afraid, as GP practices, because you're not VAT registered unless you're a dispensing practice. And that's a different, that's kind of a different kettle of fish, which we can go into if needs be another time. But what you do have under automated bill entry is a unique billing email address for your Xero license. So if, let's say, Dean Healthcare, for example, emailed you the invoice that you was to pay, if you forwarded that email to this email address, Xero will populate a draft bill based on the information on the invoice that you've received. So it should pick up the supplier, it should pick up the reference number and the date. And then what you would simply then have to do is go into your draft invoice. It would also attach the invoice, by the way, guys, so you don't have to drag and drop anything in. The paperwork will be there. All you would then do is go into the draft invoice that it's created, open it up, and then just edit it to post it where it needs to go. So if it needs to go to consumables or something like that, you would just simply put that in there, populate some of this. As I say, it should pick up a reference. It should pick up where it's from. It will attach the invoice as well. You just need to give it a little bit of information and then click approve. Okay. And then basically then that's sat in awaiting improvement. Once it's been approved, it's sat awaiting reconciliation. So you would then go into your reconcile tab. If it's a one-off payment that you've paid, Xero again will, as Kelsey showed you earlier, will match that in green. So if I go into reconcile, Xero will match that in green for you, and it's simply a matter of clicking OK. That comes out then of how many you've got to pay. And it decreases it. So it is a good way of kind of, you can clump them together as well in your bills and kind of say, right, I want to pay all these on this date. So they sit there. You can then go in and pay them all. There is a function that Xero have released very, very recently, which is very new. So I'm not going to go into too much detail because I need to have a look myself, where you can actually now pay your contacts via the direct banking through Xero. You didn't used to be able to do that. You had to get a BACS file, but a lot of your turnover wouldn't have been big enough, so your bank probably wouldn't have allowed you to do that. But there is an element coming into Xero. So watch this space on that. We'll get some more information from them and might talk about that a little bit on the next webinar. Basically means, from what I can understand, is you raise your bills and then you can then pay them directly from Xero out your bank without having to download anything. It does come at a cost though. Again, I think you get so many free, but then you pay per bill that you send. So it might not be worth it for you guys. But I'll come with more information. And if you do want more information on that, the Xero website is a really good place to go and have a look for that as well. But it's something that potentially might interest one or two of you. But if you do have an invoice that's just a one-off payment, you can see here Xero's picked that up and matched it in green. You know, if it's a bill, again, Xero will pick it up and match it in green. If not, you go into your find and match and you search it. And if you've got, if you've got one bill for I don't know, £1,000 and you've paid 3 elements of that. Again, go to find and match, choose the 3 elements to match the 1,000, which Kelsey showed you earlier in terms of ticking those boxes. So there's lots and lots of ways that you can get your information into Xero that helps you kind of manage your practices, your practice finances. I'm not going to go into too much more because I'm conscious of time and I want to give you the option to maybe ask some questions if we've not answered them all. But again, what I would say is try and add your paperwork as you go. Use the file library or attach individually to your invoices, your bills. That just makes life easier at the end of the year for the accountant, but it also gives you a real robust system where you can search Xero for everything you need, and you're not spending loads of money on toners and you're running out of space in the office, all that kind of stuff. Start to use Xero as your kind of your page where you're uploading your paperwork. We can turn it around. Kelsey touched on earlier that all practices now have had to go to a March year end due to basis period reform, which basically means now with your accountant, the queue is much, much bigger for a shorter period of time. So the more you're on top of your finances, the more that you're up to date with your paperwork, the quicker you should be able to get that turnaround. We're seeing it ourselves internally. The internal planning is huge now to be able to make sure we get through that work. But Kelsey, I'm going to open the floor then if there's any questions or anything like that.
Yep, so we have a couple of questions. Thank you so much for sending these in, and please do just keep sending them in. So the first one, Lee, is can you quickly just show us how you find the email address for the bills section, please?
Sure, no problem at all. So click into your business, come down to your bills to pay. I do apologise about the slowness of my laptop this morning, guys. Okay, so what you have along the top here, you have something called Automate Bill Entry. If you click on that, down at the bottom, you've got email bills to Xero, and that email address, then you can actually click copy and then just paste it when you get that email and forward it on. Have a play with it, have a go, see how that works for a draft. Because, like I say, it's only a draft bill, so if you do it and it doesn't pick up what you need, then fine, you might not want to use it. But have a go, have a play with it. You can't break Xero. That's the beauty of it. You can just delete things.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Lee. The next one is we had someone asking how to enter transactions into petty cash.
Oh,
So
okay. Yeah.
I just mentioned about the manual way, and it also just said about importing a CSV.
Yeah.
So could you just maybe show us how we import a CSV, please?
Yeah, no problem. So the CSV will need to be kind of obviously once you've got your petty cash spreadsheet, you'll need to format that CSV into how it's going to fit into Xero. But what we've got here, I'll use this account here, but it's really simple to import a CSV once it's been formatted. You can click your 3 little dots next to it and import a statement. Okay. Now, once that page comes up, yeah, you can actually download a Xero CSV template from this page. So if you're unsure of what it's supposed to look like, download that template, copy and paste your petty cash information into that template. So you're using the correct fields, and then simply select the file or drag and drop it, click next, and it will then bring in that CSV. And what you will then see once it's been brought in is a number of items that you then need to reconcile. What I would suggest, I would suggest having a go at that. Download that CSV template. So click the 3 little dots. Hopefully you've got a petty cash bank on your dashboard, because without that, you'll need to create one. You do that through your chart of accounts. But if you've got it sat there, click your 3 little dots, click your importer statement. That will give you the option to download the CSV template, populate that template, and then import it. What you'll find then, once you've done that, you'll have a number of items that you then need to reconcile, and it's just a simple process that Kelsey showed you earlier of going through and reconciling those items.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So it seems to be the bill section that people are really interested in today.
Okay.
So again, they're just asking, can you go through again how it goes directly into the bill section once you've emailed the bill in?
Yeah. So if we go to bills, if you go to automate, if we're doing the automate bill, and then that will then go into draft. So if I jump into bills, that will then populate into a draft bill. Now, if it's in draft, you cannot match a draft bill. So Xero won't be able to find it. You won't be able to reconcile it or anything like that. Okay. It will go into the draft section of your bill. So you can see along the top here, you've got all draft, awaiting approval, waiting payment, paid, repeating. Okay. So the automate bill entry, use that. Your email comes in from whoever. Forward that email to this email address here. That will then populate in this tab, draft tabs. You would then need to go into the draft tab, find the bill that's been populated, click on it to open it up, edit that bill to basically, so it's how you want it to look and where it needs to go, and then simply click approve. Once you've approved that, that will then sit on your dashboard, because you'll have paid that bill at some point, or you might be about to pay that bill at some point. It will need to be cleared out. So you'll be able to see at any one point all the bills that you've raised that you still need to pay. All right. So here, where it says bills to pay, you might have just done 5 emails because you know you want to pay those bills. All right. So they will sit there saying, right, I need to pay 5 bills. I know I do because I've raised them on Xero. Once you've paid them, so you'll have to go into your bank to pay them as you normally would. You then go into reconcile, and Xero will just match them, or you find and match them. And that's as well. It's as kind of simple as it sounds. I'm saying it's simple because it's not. But once you've done that body of work, you'll be able to then just go in here. Xero will clear it out for you, or you click on the OK button to match that and clear that out yourself. I'm so sorry about the slowness of this, guys. It is frustrating. IT, a call for IT for the rest of the day for me, I think. Do you think that answers that question, Kelsey?
Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
think that answers the question. So I am aware that we are approaching 10:30. There doesn't really seem to be any more questions coming through.
Okay.
So
Fine. Well, I'll tell you what, I'll wrap that up then, guys, for now. I'm going to stop sharing at this point. As I say, these webinars are quarterly. We put them on quarterly for you. Please keep your eyes open for that, for any kind of emails that come your way. From the webinars we've had previously, we have had some feedback. So on Thursday, the 18th of July, we will be doing another Xero webinar based around reporting. So keep your eyes open for that. If you want any information on that, give me or Kelsey a shout. Again, we're going to be touching on profit and loss reports, accounts transactions, cash summaries, comparison reports, and things like that. They're becoming really, really hugely important now, isn't it, in GP world, in terms of making sure you're getting your reports correct, so your financial information is up to date and correct. So that's coming on Thursday, the 18th of July. Again, it'll be at 9:30, probably for about half an hour, that one, but please feel free to jump on that one. I hope you found it useful. We're always available if you do need anything, or you want to speak to us, or you've got any questions outside of this, please drop us both an email. We're more than happy to speak to you. And I'm going to wish you an excellent rest of the day. Hopefully the sun is shining where you are. Thanks, Kelsey.
thank you so much. Thanks for joining, everyone.